afternoon. Welcome to CX Is Non-Negotiable with me, Katie Maris. I'm so excited that you are on here with me. Last week, we had an incredible guest, Adam, and we had Allison interviewing him. So what a treat. What an incredible show. And today we're going to talk about being a hero. We're going to talk about service recovery, because the reality is, if you think you can deliver an experience that is flawless consistently, think again. We are humans. At least that's the last time I checked, we were all humans and we weren't robots, which means there is some room for error. And because of that, we need to be so good at service recovery. Service recovery is something that will allow you to create more loyalty from your guests than if you were to deliver a flawless experience. So today we're going to jump in. We're going to talk about what it is to be a hero. I'm going to share a story with you, which I have shared partly on another live, but I'm going to really use this story to outline how important it is that you create an experience so good out of your service failure that the customer no longer remembers the problem. See, we have what I like to call a zero balance trust account with everybody that we come in contact with our internal customer, with our external customer. Heck, we even have it with our family and our friends. We have it in our relationships. It is up to us as individuals to put positive deposits into this trust account so that we have a little bit of a buffer. Now, why do we need that buffer? Well, because when one thing goes wrong, when you drop the ball, when you forget to do something, when you didn't follow up on what you promised, when your guests are disappointed, it takes 12 positive interactions to make up for just one negative interaction. The companies that get it right, and by it, I mean service recovery right, as I mentioned, will create more loyalty than they would have if they delivered a flawless experience. So I ask you to put on the lens of, do I have a service recovery system? What do I do? What are the opportunities or the touch points through time that are the most, the word I'm looking for, the most that can succumb to a failure? The most vulnerable positions in your customer journey, which are they? And when you uncover what those are, and you take a look at how often those things go wrong, you can then create a solution for them that allows your team members to be heroes. The first story I'm going to share with you, though, before I get into, I'm going to have two of them for you today, is a story that I share often when I'm on stage or I am with a client. And that is this. I was coming off a ship in the Caribbean. It was the 4th of July, and I decided to treat myself to stay at the Ritz-Carlton. It was rather expensive, but I called it customer experience research, which is great because this is where the story comes from. Now, I arrived and gosh, it was flawless, right from check-in all the way through to getting into my room. At check-in, they said, "Is there anything else we can do for you, Miss Maris?" And I said, "Actually, I have a really early flight. I have to leave at 5 a.m. We're in the middle of the Caribbean. We're at 7 Mile Beach." And I said, "I don't want to leave it to chance. Like, I don't want a taxi to get me there. So could we book a car?" So they take me over to concierge. We arrange a vehicle. They take me up to my room. I, get the whole room tour. I get into a bathing suit. I go down to 7 Mile Beach. I drink one too many margaritas, I'm sure. Somehow, magically, I arrive at the reception area or the lobby at 4:59 a.m. Not a soul to be found. Nobody. No car, no one behind the desk, nobody for me to talk to. We're at the corner of my eye. About 3 minutes later, I see a gentleman watering the flowers. He sees me now. He could have ignored me. He could have looked the other way. I mean, his role is to water the flowers, but he didn't. He walked on over to me and said, "Ma'am, is everything okay?" And I explained my story that I didn't have a ride. And he said, "One moment." He went behind the reception desk, grabbed a set of keys, and he said, "I'll take you to the airport in the company vehicle." 5:05 a.m. and I am on my way, not a beat missed. I want you to ask yourself, are your employees empowered to make it right? Are all of your employees empowered to make it right? Now, the Ritz-Carlton has a $2,000 budget per guest, whether that is to make it right or just to surprise and delight them. They each have a $2,000 budget. I am not saying that you need to give a $2,000 budget, but I can tell you one of my clients now has a $500 budget in the service lane to make it right with their guests so that it doesn't escalate. Every single person is empowered to make it right with their customer up to the spend of $500. Do you empower your team? Do you feel empowered to make it right when something goes wrong? Because the importance around how quickly you make it right is what will stop the service failure from costing you too much or much more than if you had made it right, and it actually creates more loyalty. Whereas if you aren't empowered, if you do not have a culture where everybody is free to ensure that the number one thing is the most important thing, and that is the customer and their experience, then you have a situation that I'm about to tell you. So I was recently in Scottsdale, Arizona, and my entire family ended up coming out that way so I didn't have to fly home east. And we all went out to a Brazilian steakhouse. Now there's 15 of us. So we got the table right in the center of the dining room with a huge chandelier over top of us. It was grand and beautiful. I decided to get dressed up that night and I wore a powder blue dress and we were laughing and having a great time. We sat down. We all ordered. I ordered the Wagyu steak with my girls and a glass of Cabernet. And all the gentlemen ordered the all-you-can-eat meat, eat until you sweat. Yeah, they all ordered that. We also all ordered drinks. So Coca-Cola, Brazilian lemonade, which is like a milky lemonade, ginger ale, some waters, some red wine, Cabernet. And the waitress comes over with her tray, takes off one drink. And I know you all know what happened next. Oh, yes. It falls all on top of me. All of it. I am sitting there soaked in Coca-Cola and red wine and Brazilian lemonade. Everybody rushed over. So the first step in hero recovery, they just rushed over. They did it well. They profusely apologized. They cleaned everything up. They gave me some napkins to be able to, wipe myself off. And then a manager came over and said, "I am so, so sorry. I'm going to make sure your dinner is taken care of." Wonderful. So I sat in my cold, wet dress for the rest of the day. Rest of the dinner, I wasn't going to make anybody get up. The bill comes. Here's the kicker. She didn't take my meal off the bill. So she had promised, she had laid out an expectation, and she didn't deliver. So I felt disappointed. I called her over and I said, "Well, you said you were going to take care of my meal." She goes, "Oh, I didn't know what you ordered. I can't do that. You ordered the Wagyu." And I was like, now I could see it if it, everything fell all over me and I decided to take advantage and, ordered the Wagyu after. But the reality is all those orders were in before that happened. And so I said, "Well, can you do at least one or two of the all you can eat meals to try to balance it out?" After the back and forth, she did that. Well, I left that night not feeling too good about the experience, and so I decided to call the manager the next day. Well, I called, didn't get a hold of the manager. I think I told 3 people the story, and they said the manager would call me back. Well, a week goes by, the manager didn't call me, so I called again, told another 2 people the story, and they said the manager will call you. Another week goes by, so now we are at 3 weeks without hearing from a manager. Finally, I get a hold of somebody, and she says at the end of it all, "You know what? I'm just going to refund the entire bill." I want to pause there because had she taken care of my bill, $155 plus, I don't know, a $20 glass of wine, $175, she would have had a happy customer. It would have cost her less money. Instead, she or the leaders hoped that it would go away. Now, she wasn't empowered to make it right because she didn't feel like she could take the Wagyu off the bill. 3 weeks go by and ends up costing 15 people's worth of meals. Let's call it $100 a head, the $1,500. So here's the lesson for you. Actually, before I get to the lesson, I'm going to go to the Ritz-Carlton, back to that story. The Ritz-Carlton, if they hadn't made it right, and if the guy that watered the flowers didn't have the empowerment to take me to the airport, I would have missed my flight. They would have had to rebook me a flight. I would have needed hotel and food. It would have cost them that $2,000 that they could spend on me, but instead, he was empowered and he could put me in a vehicle. So it cost him an hour of labor, a company vehicle, a couple dollars in gas, and got me to the airport. Had he not been empowered to do that, it would have cost the Ritz-Carlton even more. So back to the story at the Brazilian steakhouse. There's a couple of things that could have been done. You know, I was talking about this with one of our dealer groups that we work with, and we work with some highline ultra luxury, you know, Bentley, McLaren, Porsche, all the highline stores. And I asked them, well, what could they have done that would have been unreasonable hospitality? What would have been the next level of making it right? And they had to really think about it. And then finally, I fed it to them. This is how they could have made it right at a higher level. I'm sitting there cold and wet. There was a mall across the street. They could have gone over to one of the stores and grabbed me something to wear, whether it's a sweater or a pair of track pants and a t-shirt, so that I didn't have to sit wet and cold the entire time. That would have been next level unreasonable hospitality. To be a hero, it's not about, though, how extravagant it is. It's about how quickly you pick up the ball, how quickly you run with it, and if you keep your promises. So you want to hear your guest. You want to empathize and apologize. And let me tell you, I know that the customer isn't always right. But it may not be your fault, but it is your problem because they are the reason you have a roof over your head and food on the table and have the life that you have and the business is running. So you can apologize for how that person feels and apologize for the situation. So you want to hear your guest, you want to empathize and apologize. You then want to resolve it, a resolution that is intentional, one that works for the guest, because it isn't always about the money. It's not always about the refund. And honestly, at the Brazilian steakhouse, had they just refunded that part of the bill, I wouldn't have even, because she also said that I could send the dry cleaning in, but I knew the dress was ruined. I would have just walked away and left it. You want to resolve it and do what you say you're going to do and anticipate their needs. And that's where that anticipation comes. That's where that unreasonable hospitality comes in. They could have gone above and beyond. And then you want to own it and follow up. Now, this, my friends, is where we drop the ball the most. I know there's so many different channels that a guest can go through, either whether you're at a dealership or within another industry or a different type of organization. There's a lot of hurdles that people have to go over in order to get the resolution. Now, what ends up happening is we don't feel like following up. We forget because we are overwhelmed with all of our to-do lists, and the to-do list becomes more important than the customer that makes your life possible. And then some of us, hope that it just goes away. I am pretty sure the Brazilian steakhouse hoped that it was just going to go away, that I would stop calling, that I wouldn't want to deal with it, that I'd get so frustrated that I moved on. The reality is, even if they do move on from that particular situation, they also move on from you and you lose their business. So is it really worth it to not own it and follow up and close the loop? It's extremely important that you take what you promised and make it a reality, because disappointment is expectations not met. So why was I so disappointed at that Brazilian steakhouse? Because she said she'd take care of my meal, and then she didn't. And that's where the disappointment laid. I sat cold and spent a lot of money at that restaurant, and it wasn't my fault that that tray of drinks spilt all over me. So I want you to think of, I'm going to give you an exercise here, and if you're interested in having this as an outline, I do have a PDF with this. I call the Hero Process Grid. Put your email in the chat and I will get this off to you. But what I want you to do is I want you to uncover the places in your business where you most often drop the ball. Where does your team member, where do they drop the ball? Where do they screw up? Where are they humans the most? Then I want you to think about those categories. How often does that happen? Is it really something we need to pay attention to? The reality is yes. And then I want you to come up with solutions. When this thing happens, when X happens, the solution is Y. When A happens, this solution is B. So your team is empowered to do this. And then I would challenge you one step further. How much more can we empower our team? Well, can you give a stipend in terms of how much they can spend to make it right? One of our clients, their Be a Hero process gives them $500 to make it right. What can you give? What does your team have? What tools do they have to be empowered? But first, start with the Hero Process Grid. Where do your humans in your organization drop the ball the most? And when they drop the ball, what solution can you give them so they can make it right quickly? Because the reality is, if you drop the ball and you can pick it up quickly and you can run with it and own it and follow up and close the loop, you will not only save yourself money, you will also gain loyalty. And the longer that the incident isn't solved, the more money it's going to cost you, and the quicker you will lose that customer that you might have had for life. So that is my challenge to you. If you do want a copy of this grid, as I said, drop your email in the comments and we will send that out to you. But that's what I have for you today, y'all, is to ensure that you are a hero, where you take a look at the bits in your business that you know you drop the ball the most, that you are able to pick up the ball and keep running with it, and that your team is empowered. Because it takes 12 positive interactions to make up for just one negative. And here's the bonus to this. If you solve the failure quickly and in a way that speaks to your customer, and so there's two things that happen. If they've already given you a poor review, they will go back and change it. 9 times out of 10, they're going to rant and rave about how great you were with the service recovery. The second thing that's going to happen, if they haven't left you a negative review, that negative review will never come and they're going to leave you a positive one. And then if you do have a net promoter score, CSI, CXI, the customer satisfaction score, CSAT, if you have those scores, by being heroes, you can turn unloyal customers into loyal ones, because every single human knows that you are a human and they know that you're going to drop the ball. And most humans are pretty reasonable as long as they're communicated with, as long as they feel heard and valued and seen, and as long as you do what you say you're going to do to make it right. Y'all, that's part of delivering an experience, is having a 5-star mindset. You have to have a culture and a mindset that gets you to do the things that you don't feel like doing, because motivation is a lie, comfort is a lie. And if you want to win, you can't have excellence with an average mindset. It's impossible. You can't expect your team to rise past the level or the ceiling that you set. And if you set a low enough bar, that is exactly where they're going to go. So I dare you, elevate your mindset, raise the bar, 5-star mindset. Do the things you don't feel like doing so you can have the outcomes that you're after. Implement the hero system so that you can start to surprise and delight your guests, even in service failures. Be intentional where other companies are unintentional. That's how the greats do it. They decide. They put a stake in the ground. They draw a line in the sand. And they decide to rise to the level that they are more than capable of rising to. There's my challenge for y'all. I hope you have an incredible rest of your week. And thank you for dealing with the time change or the day shift from Wednesday to Thursday. I'm so grateful. And I hope that this brought you a little nugget to help you surprise and delight your guests and be heroes.